Hey, beautiful human. Welcome to episode 20 of From Chaos to Cozy, where we're on an amazing journey gaining clarity around our chaos and how to see our cozy more clearly. In the last episode, we visited with our physical inner child, which is more like our inner teenage self, and how it reflects and can voice our other inner children and kids when we're not listening to them. In this episode, we're going to start talking about some of our superpowers that can help enable us to unveil the truth of our lives and transform our chaos to cozy. We all have these abilities, and if we step back and see them from a higher level, we can see that they're all rooted in our power of choice. We'll touch on all these superpowers over the next 3 episodes. So let's start off by chatting about the power of choice, because they're all rooted in that, before we get into the actual superpowers. So a man joined a mountain monastery, and he took a vow of silence. He was allowed to say 2 words every 7 years. After the first 7 years, the monks brought him before the elder, who asked for his 2 words. "Cold floors," he responded. They all nodded and sent him away. 7 more years passed. They brought him back in and asked for his 2 words. He cleared his throat and said, "Bad food." They all nodded and sent him on his way. 7 more years passed, and they again brought him to speak his 2 words, and he said, "I quit." The elder replied, "That's not surprising. You've done nothing but complain since you got here." Touché, elder, touché. But 2 things jumped out to me in that joke. Number 1, he allowed himself to be limited to 2 words every 7 years because he could have spoken many more words if he wanted to. And then number 2, he specifically chose the 2 words that he used. You know, the guy had 7 years to think about what he was going to say, and those were the words that he chose. And I can imagine the stories he had behind the choice of words he made. You know, maybe he mentioned cold floors, not to complain, but to share that others were getting sick because of it. And maybe bad food was his way of mentioning that the food was spoiled and causing illness among the villagers, maybe even death. And possible when he said, "I quit," he was meaning that he was going to stop trying to control everything that was outside of his ability to do so and focus on love. We may not know for another 7 years. I also wonder how differently this story would have turned out if each of the 7 years he chose just to say the words, "Thank you." Interesting. We may have heard it called free will in religious circles, but regardless of our religion or belief, we strive for freedom. Our higher being is not used to being limited, so it thirsts to release itself from constraint. And our power of choice is the core of our existence on this planet, because it is by our own decisions that we have placed ourselves in the circumstances that we're in. You know, the superpowers we'll be looking at are rooted in the power of choice. You know, the power of laugh is the choice to laugh. The power of thank you is a choice to be grateful. The power of now is the choice to come back to this moment. The power of no is the choice to say no. And the power to question is a choice to question. Every moment is a choice between unconditional love and the fear of losing conditional love. You may be thinking that emotion doesn't really feel like a choice. You know, I feel what I feel. We think this because our reaction to things has become a learned habit, a conditioned habit that we've been introduced to since we were very young. And when we slow down the emotional reaction, we can pinpoint the moment when the decision to choose conditional love was made. We can change our habits by questioning the decision we make each moment. Purpose that the next time you feel an uncomfortable emotion, that it will act as a signal that something can be questioned inside you. How can we recognize our power to choose and choose differently? We can identify where the power of choice resides within us by conducting a simple experiment. Start with being conscious of where the feeling occurs when you get to choose, let's say, between two beverages, maybe root beer and Dr. Pepper. Immediately, your brain starts recalling its conditioned preferences because of what other people's opinions were, because of how something tasted 15 years ago, or maybe because of advertisements and information about their beneficial or unhealthy qualities we've been exposed to. In that moment, pause to choose. Feel that power? We could choose whatever we wanted. And if you're stubborn and have your mind made up already between root beer and Dr. Pepper, or whatever choice, alternate choice you would prefer, and you can't move past that decision, we can try another approach. So we're going to give you two new beverages from, let's say, another country, and they are unmarked in solid containers, so you can't see any color that's in them or what they look like or anything like that. And they're just labeled A and Z. And now we ask you to choose one of them without tasting it yet. And sit in that space for a moment. We give you permission to change your mind anytime you want, but we ask you to make a choice right now. Do it. Feel that moment when you make the choice. That is the power of choice. And now, choose to change your mind and choose the other item instead. Feel the flow of energy as you choose differently. And for bonus points, choose not to choose. What? Yep, you can do that too. We never have to do anything we don't want to do. It's a choice. And if we feel we have no choice, then we can look at the fear at the root of that hopelessness. An example that most of us can probably relate to is when we feel we have to go to work. Well, we don't have to. We could stay home. And if we've skipped out on our job enough, we might not have a job at the place anymore. Then we get to go look for other employment. We fear if we can't find a source of income, we might not be able to afford all the extra things that we like outside of food, water, and shelter. We might have to move to a smaller home and tighten our belts with spending. Or we might end up not having a place to live, ending up asking friends and family for assistance or a coach to sleep on, or until we can get back on our feet. If there's no room for us in the inn, we might end up seeking assistance from the government. So many choices we get to make. And we could fear what people might think about us if any of the above happened to us. There's also the possibility of fearing what others might not help us because we're unacceptable or unlovable in some way. And then there's the fear that we might have a painful death or die alone. These are the types of fears that flow between the surface at the root of lower vibrational fear emotions. We can be unaware of them until something echoes up from those caverns, triggered by a surface fear. You might have heard the might. When we're fearing if something might happen, we're fearing the future. Our superpowers come into play as we choose to question those fears and beliefs and then exercise that power of choice to laugh, say no, come back to this moment with gratitude. We can talk about our superpowers all day long, but putting them into practice is what will build our muscles. Because talking about exercise and lifting weights won't do much for the body till we get our butt up off the couch and put it into action. Think about how powerful you really are. Meditate on this great power of choice that you have. See yourself as the amazing creator of your life. The Big Kahuna brings us all the classrooms we've asked for so we can learn what we came here to learn and experience what we came here to experience. But we were also given the free will to choose what everything would mean to us and how it would impact us. Think on that. Purpose, that the next time you feel an uncomfortable emotion, that it will act as a signal that something can be questioned inside you. And as we talk about superpowers, we'll also talk about a way that you can ignite that power. Now that we have a foundation on the power of choice, let's take a look at one of our superpowers, the power to laugh. As we begin talking about some of our superpowers, we will start with this power of laughter or laughing because it has been the primary tool for me to be able to step out of fight or flight mode. When I'm in that chaotic state of mind, I'm super focused, and it takes an opposing emotion to push me off the drama train. Talk more about this in a moment, but let's start off with a few one-liner jokes that could or could not ignite laughter from you, because it's your choice, right? So there's 7 of them. Number 1, a day without sunshine is like night. Number 2, on the other hand, you have different fingers. Number 3, the early bird may get the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. That one you have to think about for a sec. Number 4, eagles may soar, but dogs don't get sucked into jet engines. Oh my gosh. Number 5, you never really learn to swear until you learn to drive. Shout out to some of my friends who like to voice their swearing when they're driving. Number 6, if you think nobody cares, try missing a couple of payments. And number 7, if at first you don't succeed, then skydiving isn't for you. Do you see the power of laughter? See how lighter you feel just after those few words? Even if you don't LOL, laugh out loud, you might have smiled or even rolled your eyes as you shook your head at the silliness. Laughter is healing. It changes our perception of the world in an instant. Grinning, smiling, chuckling, and laughing are all related, and with them sits an energy that transforms our emotions from one of victimhood into empowerment. We give away our power when we let external things influence what we believe about others, the world, and ourselves. We have beliefs about what circumstances are supposed to mean, and that makes us feel out of control when they don't unfold the way we thought they should. Discovering that we can instantly choose to laugh or smile about what's happening, even if it isn't what we've been taught to do in that situation, allows us to ignite new energy into the moment. Imagine going out to your car to leave for work and you notice you have a flat tire or the car doesn't start. We can cuss up a storm, get angry, or throw ourselves on the ground in anguish because we think the universe must hate us to do this to us. Or we can smile and trust that every situation is for our highest experience. We can smile and bust out laughing at the situation if we choose to. Now, someone observing us might think we've lost it and have finally went over the edge after seeing the flat tire. And maybe they're right. We have lost it being our victimhood. In that moment, we wouldn't have taken back control of our lives and have discovered our power to choose, how we want to feel. So sure, the first time we choose to smile might be a bit awkward or creepy, but when it becomes our new habit, we see our lives change. Situations outside of ourselves no longer have the power to impact us like they used to. There once was a king who was extremely fond of their court jester, and each time the court jester said something witty, the king burst into roaring laughter. The king used to give this court jester special rewards when he surpassed himself in saying something that was extremely funny and at the same time deeply meaningful. One day the king decided that on the following day he would not laugh, no matter what the court jester said. He took an oath that he would remain very serious, even to the point of sadness, and purposed to do it throughout the entire day. He would not allow even a smile to escape from his lips. When the next day dawned, the king summoned his ministers, went out early in the morning for a ride on his horse. The king and his entourage were aimlessly riding through the king's estates when all of a sudden they saw the court jester on his horse. And he was not coming in their direction. It appeared that he was going somewhere else. And the king wanted to catch the court jester's attention, and so he called out, "Hey, hey!" The court jester brought his horse to a halt and then got off and walked towards the king. And the king said to him, "You're so short. You are so thin. You are so slight. You do not seem to be strong at all. But your horse is so strong, so stout, so beautiful and powerful. How do you keep him so beautiful, powerful, strong, and stout? What is the secret to his excellent condition?" And the court jester said to the king, "I feed my horse, your highness, but you feed me. This is the difference between my appearance and that of my horse." The king could not laugh. He could not even smile. Indeed, he fulfilled his oath because he felt absolutely sad and miserable for the rest of the day. And then on the following day, he increased the salary of his court jester. The value of our sense of humor is invaluable. It feeds us, and we can feed it to keep it healthy and vibrant. I try to have a regular intake of humor into my day through social media like Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. And where I do not find humor, then I try to create it myself. It's interesting that the role of the jester in the European kingdoms was to entertain and change the mood of the nobles. But they also were able to speak about things that most people weren't able to because humor and laughter allowed tough subject matter to be more palatable. They planted seeds of change within their interactions with the rulers and the royal courts, through which they could change the world. Laughter and humor keep us calm. They allow us to look at our fears and understand the root of what's igniting our victimhood. In playing cards, the Joker is a mysterious character. Some say his number is 0 or undefined. He is truly the wild card, and in certain games, the players get to choose what he represents. In spiritual cards, the Jester or Fool is a very powerful card, representing a new beginning or end of something in our life, a new adventure that is free from expectations and rules, no limitations. It's like a little child who still sees the world as a place full of possibilities. And the jester may appear to be acting in a silly manner that challenges the belief of others to act in a certain way in a certain situation. And in essence, he becomes a pioneer to new thinking. This influential ability allows our power of choice to flow, knowing that we can become whatever we want to become, or transform any situation into whatever we want it to be. We can change our perception about anything. And something that appeared devastating to us can become a humorous twist in our story, opening up new possibilities for us. So try it out. Think about a past situation that ruined your day. Close your eyes and go back to that moment. Take some deep breaths and try to stay calm. Don't get ignited into fear. Feel the muscles in your jaw start to tingle. Yep, there it is, a grin trying to find its way out. Now do it. Choose to grin fully while thinking about the situation. See how lighter that story appears in your mind? Now go all in and let that smile take full form. It is becoming a little easier, isn't it? Yes, let's take the next step and quietly chuckle, still thinking of the situation. Do it even if it sounds fake, because it might be in the beginning. And then let the funny energy flow into you unbridled. Begin to laugh even if you have to force it at first. I mean, my fake laugh is just ridiculous, and sometimes just hearing it makes me laugh for real. Kind of sounds like, it does. Now that you have laughed through the situation in your mind, that memory's tinted differently than it was a moment ago. So the more we experience laughter in our moments and revisit old memories to laugh within them, the greater we empower our ability to change our attitude about what's happening. You know, having worked in a call center as both a representative and a supervisor, I received a variety of calls from individuals at different stages in their lives. On occasion, a caller might have pushed some of my buttons, triggering my fear ego inside me. And the fight and flight would churn inside me and begin to rise. And it's in that moment that I choose to fight, flee, or laugh on the inside, because, you know, laughing on the outside might infuriate the challenging caller more. It was always enjoyable being the individual who received the brunt of someone's emotional outburst because of something someone else did. That's sarcasm, right? In a particular instance, the caller had escalated through a representative, one of my resolution specialists, my coach who was over them, up to me. So they went through all those people. So once I announced my name, he interrupted me to state, "What can you do for me besides nothing?" And then he continued to share information with me for the next 5 minutes. Nonstop. I wasn't sure how he was breathing and talking nonstop, because I never heard him take a breath at all. It was just constant sharing of his information. But as I was taking notes on his concerns and challenges, I also chose to laugh inside. He was so extremely upset, yelling at times, that it seemed like he was doing it on purpose. You know, was I being pranked? I thought at first. I looked at the call as if it was a prank. And in approaching the call this way, I didn't snap into defensive mode or retreat from participating in the conversation. I smiled as I took notes and made sure he knew I was listening to him by some and "oh wow" statements. I was able to actively listen and be empathetic and compassionate with them, because I wasn't on the defense. And at the end of that call, we were laughing together, and he said we had a customer for life. And that is much different than some previous calls where I was in fear and I was in a different mentality. Those calls ended with a customer hanging up and my heart beating out of my chest and my face flushed. One of the manipulative tactics I used to apply in my relationships was to leave the room with a hurt face of sadness. They were supposed to chase after me and bend to my will. Thankfully, boyfriend number 3 was as stubborn as I was and didn't give in to that manipulation. You know, my discovery of my destructive behavior of manipulation came about when we were refinishing some hardwood floors in our home. And he was blunt about how he felt about the job I was doing with the staining, and it was just enough for me to choose to have my feelings hurt by his comments. So I stood up, pulled off my gloves, threw them across the room, and headed toward the front door. I walked slowly because I wanted to give him a chance to apologize and stop me. He didn't. I mentioned earlier that I was stubborn, so I felt I had no other choice but to carry out my threat. I walked out the door and kept walking. And as I took a lap around the block, I calmed down. And I dreaded having to walk back into the house to face him. But I only took one trip around the neighborhood and headed back in because I knew I was going to have to go back in eventually. Why delay it? And he had continued working, and when I walked in, he asked in a calm voice, "Did you have a nice walk?" And then busted out laughing. And I couldn't help but join him, and that changed the atmosphere. And I'm really grateful for the experience with him, as when I would start to get all pouty and begin my old ways of trying to manipulate through sadness, he would make comments like, "You gonna ride that lip to town?" Or hold out his cupped hands and inquire if I was gonna cry him a handful of tears. The interactions allowed me to see my silly behavior, but it also taught me the importance of being silly. We don't have to live under the reign of the unkind king or the sorrow-filled queen. We're able to be the jester of our own court. Let out a hearty laugh, have a blast, changing your life from one of suppression to one of freedom. Try beginning your day by choosing to laugh when you first wake up. This is how you can ignite your power of laughter. If you can't jump immediately into laughter, try choosing to grin first, and then work your way up to a smile, and then eventually choose to chuckle and flow into full-out laughter. Your day will be totally different. Give it a try. Choosy choosers choose what they want to, and it's not always about peanut butter. Write down a reminder to laugh. Put it somewhere you would see it every day, the refrigerator door, the bedroom door, the bathroom mirror, wherever. Have a reminder to laugh. Why are you being so serious? Now that's our first superpower, and over the next couple of episodes, we will look at 4 others. And I'd love to hear about the power of choice and the power to laugh and how they've impacted your lives. And of course, if you have any questions about any of the content, please don't hesitate to ask. There's an amazing adventure that we're all on here, and we can all learn from each other. There's never any stupid questions. And you can either comment below in this video, or if you'd prefer it to be more private, you can always email me at bruttazen@gmail.com. In the next episode, we'll look at the power of thank you and the power of now. Till next time, remember, every second of every moment of our lives, that we are eternally and unconditionally loved by the Mother and the Father of all things, our Creator. And of course, I love you too. So hang in there. Take care of you. We'll see you soon.